the NVIDIA 2060 Super. Now this is the EVGA XC Ultra version, really thick graphics card for some awesome cooling. Is it worth the premium over the Founders Edition? Is this the best 2060 Super that you can get? I'm going to let you guys know my impressions on it coming up now. Hey guys, Tiago here once again with Classical Technology. I want to thank all my recent subscribers. If you enjoyed my content, please remember to subscribe, like, hit that bell symbol so you get the notification. Leave a comment below with the GPU you're using now, and maybe if you've considered the 2060 Super. Now, the 2060 Super, this in particular is the EVGA XC Ultra model. It can be a little confusing, or sort of the different names and nomenclature, but basically it boils down to the XC Ultra is going to have the thickest cooler. It's a 2.5 slot graphics card, which means that on your case, you better have a lot of room in your PCIe slots because it's going to take up 3 different slots. Now, this also means that in smaller cases, you may have a couple of more thermal issues because it's going to be a lot closer to sort of that basement of the case if your case has a particularly high floor area and not open. But this is more of a concern just for smaller cases, and you could always mitigate that issue by possibly just choosing maybe the 2-slot graphics card like the XC Gaming or something like that, or maybe even the Founders Edition. But anyway, today we're focusing on this XC Ultra, and we're going to cover 3 different areas. First, and the most important, is performance. Second is going to be value for your money compared to other cards on the market. And third is going to be sort of the aesthetics and how the card generally looks in your case and how it feels like to own it. First, let's talk about performance. Now, the 2060 Super is a fantastic graphics card for the money. Let's just get that out of the way right off the bat. I was really impressed with it. Primarily, it does really well in 1080p high refresh rate gaming. Like, it absolutely crushes that. 1440p, I would say, is the sweet spot for it, in games across the range. That's really where it's going to perform very well. 4K, while it can do 4K, it's not really a 4K card. I mean, even the 2080 Ti often struggles hitting 60 frames per second in certain games like Red Dead Redemption 2, at really high settings. So I would say while you can use the 2060 Super for 4K, I would get it if you have a 1440p monitor or a 1080p high refresh rate monitor, or even an ultra-wide monitor. I think it should also be able to handle that quite nicely. Now, if you have a 1080p monitor that's not 240 hertz, maybe not even 144 hertz, then I would go with something cheaper, because if you're only going to be hitting 60 to 75 hertz, you really don't need this graphics card. It's going to be overkill. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of the performance figures for this graphics card. As you can see, the performance is stellar, and although the Super variant isn't a huge difference from the previous generation, and it did go up $50, the previous generation used to be MSRP of $349. This newer version, you can find it for about $399 for the Founders Edition. This particular EVGA XC Ultra card was about $439 at Micro Center. Now, what makes up that $40 difference between this and the Founders Edition cards? Now they have sort of that twin fan style instead of the blower style. So, and generally they also have a very good PCB, because I mean, it's NVIDIA. They're going to bin the best cards, and then they're going to give the third party sort of the secondary pick of the litter, which, EVGA will take a card like the XC Ultra, which is going to be the best 2060, slap a fat cooler on it, have a little bit of a price premium, because the margins on these graphics cards are, actually very tight. I don't think they make a lot of money on these from what I've heard before from different sources. So performance-wise, is this going to perform better than the Founders Edition? If you can find the Founders Edition for $399, it's not as big of a performance jump. You may get a little bit higher performance here or there, but really where the performance is going to come in is it's going to be cooler than the Founders Edition. The EVGA XC Ultra is going to be significantly cooler. You may be around 65, 66C. The benefit to performance, your clocks are going to stay higher the cooler that it is. Of course, you can overclock more. You'll have more headroom for overclocking if the card is staying really cool. The second item we're going to talk about is the value proposition. Now, we sort of touched on this in the performance segment, but first, the 2060 Super Founders Edition is a little bit hard to find out in the wild. You can order one from NVIDIA, but often they're sold out. The places that I've been able to find them in stock I think they've really sold out of them recently, has been Best Buy. Not even Micro Center is going to have the Founders Edition 2060 Super. So how does the 2060 Super compare to other graphics cards in a similar price range? Well, let's talk about the AMD 5700 and 5700 XT. Now, the 5700 XT performs closer to the 2070 Super, so that's actually a pretty nice and significant boost. You can get them for around the same price as the 2060 Super. The 5700 XT may prove a pretty good proposition over the 2060 Super, just because you can find them for even under $400. And in terms of other NVIDIA graphics cards, I mean, unless you step up a little bit more and get like a 2070 black version, which I've just seen on sale at Micro Center, it was $499. You figure spending $439 on the best 2060 Super, or maybe spending $499, a $60 difference for a 2070 Super. Maybe the black version isn't going to be necessarily the best version. The cooler is not as good as the more expensive ones, but it's still a 2070 Super, and you should be able to hit higher performance regardless, even against the 2060 Super. And lastly, let's touch on aesthetics. Now, EVGA cards could be a little bit polarizing. I personally think that it's sort of something that grows on you. I really like their aesthetic. It looks very sort of like down to business performance, because you have sort of that heat pipe visible and you have all those fins visible. I think it looks really cool and industrial and just, getting down to business. The RGB on it is minimal. It's not too much. You'll have it sort of on the lettering that you could just leave on a single color or to have it change colors. Now, when you actually hold this 2060 XC Ultra, it feels super beefy because of that 2.5 slot cooler. I mean, this card feels substantial. Like, it feels really big and thick. It feels heavy. I also have a 2080 for the Win 3, which is the highest tier from EVGA that they're offered for the 2080. Now that's a triple fan card, 2.5 slot as well. I think it might actually be a 2.75 slot if I'm not mistaken. So it's a big card. This 2060 is almost as big as that card, which generally for aesthetics I'll view as a positive, because I think a nice chunky graphics card is just going to look really cool. Now, it may not really fit in your case if you have a smaller case, so just be aware of that. But for aesthetics wise, I think this card looks fantastic. The box and packaging, EVGA did a very good job on it. The RGB effects are really good. So in general, if you like the look of these EVGA cards, you're not going to be disappointed in this one. This one's the coolest looking 2060 by far. I mean, it's really big and thick and it just looks amazing. It looks really cool. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe, hit that bell symbol so you get notifications. Like the video, leave a comment. Let me know if you've ever considered the 2060 Super or what graphics card you would consider next. And thank you once again, and we'll see you on the next video.